First off, this will not be a review of gameplay, visuals, or anything like that, but rather a video essay about the concept of revenge in The Last of Us Part 2. Obviously, there are spoilers, so if you don't want any information on the game, why are you here in the first place? The Last of Us Part 2 was instantly review bombed. At first, it was your typical knuckle-dragger spouting, "This is SJW propaganda," and the like, but increasingly for the storytelling decisions. This is not a defense of Naughty Dog, the writers, or the story in general. It is simply what I saw to be the message behind the game. Revenge is a feeling every one of us has experienced, hopefully not on the scale of a murdered family member, but it constantly affects us, even in menial ways. A study done by VCU psychology professor David Chester found that the leading cause of someone wanting revenge is sadism. They enjoy inflicting pain on others. Nobody would want to admit and say they are a vengeful person, but we often catch ourselves in that hypothetical frame of mind. The first major event in The Last of Us Part 2 is the death of Joel. Having been the protagonist and main character of the first game, killing him within several hours of starting was a bold and controversial decision. Many people were upset, not just him dying, but that he was beaten to death in front of our and Ellie's eyes. An ignominious end to a beloved character. When Joel is killed by Abby, the daughter of the doctor he killed in the first game, it did something I don't remember seeing in games before or that much in media at all. It not only showed that actions have consequences, but that previous actions can come back to haunt the characters. I've written a dozen or so TV spec scripts, and one of them deals with something similar to this, as I wanted to see it addressed. In it, the protagonist, a bounty hunter, is forced to deal with killing and what it does to the soul or humanity of a person. As she kills, she thinks about how it gets easier and is forced to deal with her lack of guilt, as another character, Death personified, questions her about it. What does killing do to our humanity? For as long as I can remember, the idea of our choices affecting our mortality has fascinated me. Actions have consequences. Joel killed numerous people, and essentially doomed humanity itself with his selfish decision, and he didn't even ask Ellie about it, or give her a choice in her own life. He murdered the doctor because he never got over his own daughter's death from decades before. That was a decision for himself, not Ellie. I wonder how many people see Joel as a hero, also think that Walter White and Tony Soprano are the good guys. But I'm not here to convince you Joel was a bad person, because I'm not sure that he was. He couldn't bear to lose another daughter, and did what he thought was best for Ellie. Of course, the first game ended with him lying to her face about what he said, so yet another shade of gray. This isn't Disney, where they kill a beloved mother or brother, and mourning them is easy. Joel is not a knight in shining armor, white hat type of hero, nor do I believe he was ever intended to be one. He was a flawed man who made decisions we were supposed to be uncomfortable with, and he paid for those decisions with his life. The death of Joel kicks off the driving motivation of the game, Ellie's revenge for his death, or so she says to make herself feel better. It becomes evident the revenge is for Ellie and Ellie alone. After hours and hours of playing with her point of view, we are switched over to Abby, but before that we get one of the most powerful scenes in the game, or what I feel should be considered one. Ellie stumbles upon Owen and Mel, at which point she kills them. Okay, so what, another 2 people to add to the list? Easy, right? Except that Mel is pregnant. I was watching a streamer play through this part, and when this happened, someone from his chat said, "Ellie is such a badass." And that line has stuck with me. I'm deeply troubled by someone who could watch a pregnant woman be stabbed to death and have that as a first reaction. Oh, but wait, she attacked Ellie and was there when they killed Joel, you say. Be that as it may, the key to this is the reaction of Ellie herself. This death impacted her so much she instantly breaks down into a panic attack-like state. This is not something to be taken lightly for the character or for us. Ludonarrative dissonance has been talked about to death, such as in a game where you can murder 100 people during gameplay, but in a cutscene the character will be like, "I'm not a murderer," and throw the gun away. This death connects the gameplay to the cutscenes, as Ellie and the player will now have to reckon with that action. Something like Uncharted 4 has you kill wave after wave of nameless male mercenaries, But with this, we are forced to deal with the consequences of a brutal death of a non-traditional victim. This is the first time when Ellie is forced to face the consequences of her actions. At what cost is she willing to pay for revenge? Jesse and Tommy show up and they head back to the theater, and for a brief moment things are calm until Abby arrives. She takes Tommy hostage and kills Jesse, and oh man, now we are hyped for some revenge. Abby is gonna pay for what she did. Oh, that sound you hear is us landing flat on our back as the rug is pulled out from underfoot. The point of view shifts to Abby, and we dive into the reactions of her and her companions to the death of her father, Jerry, the doctor. Get used to it, because from this point on, Abby is basically playable character 2.0. I was in high school when Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, and that was Kojima saying, "Oh, you like Solid Snake, huh? Well, play as him for 2 hours and then be this brand new character for the rest of the game." So this is something I have somewhat experienced before. I can see where people are upset because this was said to be Ellie's story, which some would think means you only play as her. Abby murdered Joel in front of Ellie and thus became an intangible part of her story, as she is the main reason Ellie has set off on her Scorched Earth tour. When I taught sociology, one of my favorite lessons was designed to get students to think from another point of view, one completely different from what they were accustomed to. I had them do a retelling of a popular fairy tale from the opposite viewpoint. For example, The Three Little Pigs was from the wolf's point of view, and I got to hear about the horrible things the pigs had done to him and his reasoning for revenge. We are at our peak of anger and rage when Naughty Dog makes us step into the shoes of the primary antagonist. We get Ellie and Joel type father-daughter connections before we are forced to see her reaction at his murder. During the first game, this unnamed doctor was simply the man who was going to kill Ellie. We didn't need his reasoning. That's all that mattered. Here, we get that reasoning, and we can decide what to make of it. But the doctor is irrelevant. This is about Abby. Are we supposed to instantly side with her after hours and hours of being with Ellie? I don't think so. This is just the first step towards revealing a much more complex story. The unnamed people we have killed throughout these games have backstories of their own. They don't exist simply for us to kill and move on to the next scene. Among the people we meet and interact with is Mel and Owen, and maybe it's just me, but it's fascinating to watch their decisions with a metaphorical axe hanging over their heads. Mel goes out with them despite being pregnant, and all I could think was just stay at the base and you will survive. They are a dead man/woman walking, and I always felt uneasy knowing that, and same goes for Alice, the dog. Eventually, Abby gets her own Ellie in the form of Lev, and the comparisons are pretty clear, if not heavy-handed. Abby, who completed her revenge, is now thrust back into more revenge as her friends keep dying at Ellie's hand. This is where the commentary and theme of vengeance is laid out. Joel spent the entirety of the first game getting revenge for his daughter, taking it out on everyone he could, despite none of them really being responsible for his daughter's death at all. It culminated in the murder of Jerry and Marlene, and where that story ended, another was just beginning. Abby then takes the reins of a revenge tour and, along with her friends, tracks down Joel and kills him. Her revenge is complete. But like a virus, it gets transferred to Ellie, who kills and kills in order to sate her desire. Abby's fire ignites and eventually brings her with a knife to Ellie's pregnant partner Dina's throat. She is about to kill her, but Lev basically pleads with her to stop. Abby warns Ellie to never see her again, and do you see what is happening? Are you beginning to understand? Ellie and Dina have seemingly retired to a quiet farm, John Marston style, complete with a newborn baby. Tommy brings the storm with him and shames Ellie into feeling bad about not getting that final revenge they owe Joel. Ellie has lied to herself long enough, and in a devastating scene, Dina tries to convince her to stay by saying, "We have a family." She doesn't get to be more important than that. But we already know the answer. In California, Ellie tracks down her nemesis, who has no desire to continue this vendetta. Only after a knife is put to Lev's throat do we have a final showdown. As Abby is held underwater, the camera stays on Ellie, and the anger is palpable. A serene memory of Joel races through her head, and the determination so evident before falters. All the bloodshed, the pain, sweat, and tears are for nothing. She lets Abby go and returns home to an empty house. Game over. What are we to make of this? Why did she let Abby go? I understand where it can be hard to believe that Ellie was ready to kill Lev and Abby, then a few minutes later just release her. And I have no good answer for that. The logical assumption would be that she was done with killing, and remembering Joel in a happy moment forced her to realize he is gone and never coming back. Him playing the guitar, something they bonded over, hits even harder, as with losing 2 fingers, she will never be able to play the same way again. But that doesn't really concern me. Good storytelling serves a purpose and has something to say. What would have happened if Ellie killed Abby? Does she then kill Lev? If not, does he then become a focal point of revenge by eventually coming after Ellie? If Ellie killed them both, or just one, she still returns to that same empty house. Dina is gone. What would revenge have done? This is her decision, something she did not have at the end of the first game. This is her story, not ours. It would have been easy for us to kill Abby, say, yeah, damn right, turn the game off and move on. Ellie does not get that option. She must live with the repercussions of her actions, and killing Abby was just too much for her conscience. If you did not like this ending, ask yourself, was the revenge for her or yourself? Revenge is bad is the most simplistic way of relaying Naughty Dog's message, but it's deeper than that. Simone de Beauvoir, 20th century French existentialist, authored an essay aptly titled An Eye for an Eye. Written directly after World War II, it was in response to the execution of a French collaborator with Nazi Germany, and sought an answer to the basic question, when does vengeance end and justice begin? Was Ellie justified in her actions? Was Abby? Joel? Who started this cycle of revenge, and what are we to make of the desire to inflict pain on others to satiate our own hurt? De Beauvoir states that our freedom is dependent on the freedom of others, and when a transgression is committed, there is almost a primeval need to avenge it and make right a balance of the natural order. But we've learned it just never stops there. This is Ouroboros eating its own tail. Killing someone out of vengeance is only likely to make someone else seek it. These characters are fraught with trauma and think that causing pain on others will bring back that which they have lost. But it never does. The circle of violence and revenge will never be unbroken, as even if you gain that catharsis by exacting pain on the other party, it takes a piece of you and your humanity with it. Maybe, just maybe, Ellie's act of sparing Abby will break that circle. People are free to interpret art however they please, so I'm not going to be like, this is the only way to view this game, and I freely admit that I tend to overthink themes and reasoning. I will say, though, that I feel really bad for those that did not like this message, as it affected me enough to, write all this out and make the video. Hopefully I have given you another angle to look at this story and can appreciate what I feel they were trying to say. I usually make Witcher-related content, and that is usually analyzing the stories and games with a historical and morally philosophical bent. But if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, comment, but most importantly, share it with anyone you know who might be interested in hearing or reading this essay.